What's up, guys? That was my intro once again. Like I mentioned in my other two videos, if you haven't watched those yet, I'm going to be singing my intro all week because I feel like it, and I'm in the works of kind of getting a new intro before the September release of, well, it is September, but the release of the 7 Kings of the Lands. So yeah, it's just a little fun I'm trying to have. I haven't been like quirky or silly in a while, so I figured I might as well be. Today's video is going to be on the chase. I'm going to be kind of recapping what I talked about in the last two videos, even though they weren't really on the chase. A lot of the plays that I was talking about in general kind of corresponded with the chase zone as well. So I'm going to kind of just re-go over everything I did mention, maybe kind of mention a little bit of stuff that has to do with battle, even though I am going to be doing a whole battle video. But essentially, if I go over everything in all the videos and they're all connected, it'll kind of make a lot more sense, so I figured it'll be really helpful that way too. So let me hop into the chase video. So I want to start off talking about something that's more recent, which is Bahamut itself. I'm going to be talking about, well, I'm going to be using him as my main example because this is our current meta, and these are cards we see used often. And the thing I wanted to go over is Bahamut has always been an issue because, of course, the sword not only gives him swiftness and imperishable, but he can get imperishable himself. And I kind of want to go over how that works in the chase and the only proper ways to get rid of him. So Flame of the Outer World is essentially the only card that you can use 2 of to get over Bahamut no matter what. Why this works is because it says this card deals 800 damage to target J Resonator and players cannot chase to this card. So some people are confused of why that does get over it, because you can't chase another flame to this flame, so they think, oh well, when I take the damage from the first one, why can't I just sack Leviathan and get imperishable and then be free for the second one? So there's actually 2 reasons why you can't do that. One is because, just like talking about the old in the old videos about priority, as turn player, if I decide to use Flame of the Outer World on your Bahamut, because we can't chase to it, it resolves. You're now at 1,200, and I'm still in priority as the turn player, and I can use another flame. Even if priority wasn't a thing, you would still not be able to respond to it, because this is the way the chase would resolve. Because the chase always resolves backwards, what would happen is I would use Flame of the Outer World, you would be at 200 defense, it would resolve, you would then attempt to sack Leviathan to gain imperishable, and to you sacking Leviathan, remember, because this is an activated ability like I talked about, it goes into the chase and I'm allowed to respond to it. So then I would respond with another Flame of the Outer World, and the Flame of the Outer World will then kill Bahamut. He would become an Astral Ruler, and then the imperishable will now be applied to nothing and you wouldn't be able to get imperishable. So it's not only because of priority, but also because the target technically doesn't exist. Normally, if you banish this sword before you've J-activated and you J-activate, he'll come out with imperishable, and in that sense, if I was to Flame and Thunder or Flame, of course he would still have imperishable. But if it's my turn and I'm trying to attempt to double Flame Bahamut, it will not work. So see, this is an example I can use in how it would work. If I use Flame of the Outer World on Bahamut, and you're now at 200 defense, I then attempt to play Thunder. Because you can respond to Thunder, you can then sack Leviathan to gain imperishable, and what would happen is this would go first, you would gain imperishable, Thunder would then resolve and destroy Bahamut, and he would become a ruler again because he did in fact get the imperishable. The proper way to play this would be to use Thunder and Thunder first, and if he's at 500 and he doesn't respond with the sword, you immediately use Flame. But even if they see this coming and you go with Thunder and they sack Leviathan, at this point if you use Flame of the Outer World, it's still going to resolve with Flame, making him 200 first, this giving him imperishable, and then Thunder killing him and him still being a ruler. So the only successful way to get over something like this is to use double Flame, and that's kind of a little bit about how the chase works when it comes to cards like that. I'm going to re-talk about a card like Percival. So this is one of the new enter abilities, and once again, no matter which enter you use, the second it goes into the chase, when you pay 1 mana and play Percival, it is in the chase. Every card when you pay the cost goes into the chase, and the other turn, opposing player is now able to respond to this. So that's why you can Zeke's this card, because it's in the chase. It's considered a summon spell, and they can use Zeke's. So if they then choose not to respond to the actual attempt of you summoning this, it then hits the field and its enter activates, and then the enter goes into the chase. if this card did not have an enter effect, it would not go into the chase. So you would just have a Resonator on the field with no effect. Let's say he's just a 2/2 no effect monster. You play it, they have one window to respond to it, which is in the chase up here. It resolves and hits the field. They now no longer can respond to it till you continue your turn. Either pass priority by saying, you want to pass priority, there's nothing else you really want to do. And that's like, let's say if you end your turn, they have a window to do something, or you can continue to play. And at this point, if you were to try to play something else, let's say like another card, then while this is in the chase, they can respond to Percival. So I talked about Susanoo in my enter ability, my enter ability video as well, the one I did yesterday. And just gonna go over it real quick once again because it does apply to the chase, even though it was the enters I was talking about. When both of these enters activate, they both go into the chase, and you're allowed to choose which one goes in there first. So essentially, you would put this card deals damage equal to its attack into chase first, and then the second effect to equip it with the sword. Because then what happens is, because the chase resolves backwards, the sword would first equip, and then he would deal damage of 1600 instead of 12. And then of course the sword says if you do damage, they take damage. So they would take 16, opposed to if you said, I'm gonna equip the sword first and then do damage, the damage would resolve first. You would do 1200, get no buff from the sword or the effect, and then the sword would equip, and then you wouldn't get the effect. So there's also something about the chase that kind of works with, let's say, Thunders as well. You can add to the chase as many times as possible, even if cards are kind of resolving backwards in a sense. So let's say they play Percival and they pay 1, and let's say for some reason they only have 1 mana open, and well, they have, let's say, 2 mana open, and they play Percival, and you attempt to Thunder it, and then they use a 1 card cost to protect Percival. At this point, you can drop Feasting, and you would get its enter ability. And even though this is in the chase, at this point they're saying, okay, I'm tapped out, I have nothing to respond with. This enters the chase, and in a game, this enters the field, and in a game like Yu-Gi-Oh, what would happen is just this would hit the field, Thunder would go off, and then the card would be protected and it would be over. But in Force of Will, the way it works is, when this hits the field, its enter effect now activates, so it gets its counter. And now, because none of this has officially resolved yet, because it's going backwards, you're still allowed to remove this counter to then negate the card they used to protect Percival. So let's say it was a card like Dream of Juliet and they had 3 open. So they pay 1 for Percival, you attempt to Thunder it, they try to blink it with Dream of Juliet, you drop Feasting, you get your counter, you remove your counter to make Dream of Juliet cost 1 more. Because they physically can't pay it, it's going to fizzle. So then everything would resolve backwards from this point on. So Feasting is already fully resolved, your counter is removed, Thunder would then go through because Dream of Juliet is cancelled, and Percival would be destroyed. So please note that that's kind of extremely important. Just because the last card resolves backwards doesn't mean that things can't be added in between those stacks. If I wanted to, even if I'm doing this and all this is going on, let's see, it was like this. Even if I, let's say, use this counter to negate Dream of Juliet, and I have like a Resonator over here, and they have another mana open, they can just Thunder Feasting or something. You can always add to the chase in any step or any layer of the chase, if you will, as long as your cards are spell instants or activates that let you properly activate them. You can always add to the chase, so you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm like kind of past that window and I can't do it anymore. It's always, you can always target any card in the chase and respond to any card specifically in the chase, as long as you're still in the chase. So Feasting itself is also a really good example kind of how this works. Is, let's say they have a Percival, we're going to keep using her as an example. Percival attacks, and let's say actually they have a Susanoo too. So this is their field, and you're wide open, you have 3 open, and 2 green of course. They attack with Percival, you're allowed to drop Feasting, like I said, because let's say they have no response at this point, because of course they can still Flame in the Outer World or something, in which case your enter would still go through, but let's say they have no response, they just attack and you drop Feasting. You declare your enter, because it hits the field, to prevent damage from Susanoo, and it now can't do any damage this turn, and then you're allowed to declare block and kill Percival. And why you're allowed to do this is because Summoning Sickness only applies on your turn when you play a Resonator, but it has no effect against blocking. So you're allowed to play Featsing and block, and this would be such a good play because not only would you take out the Percival, but even if you're rested, not only can they not swing to you, but they can't kill Featsing either because you've prevented damage. So that's a really good way to use Featsing as well, and why it's such a good card. Preventing damage, being able to produce mana, which of course producing will does not go into the chase like I mentioned in yesterday's video. So please make sure that if somebody does Flame of the Outer World, you're Featsing, not on the turn you dropped it, of course, because the activate does have summoning sickness, but in general, if you're able to use the activate effect because it's a turn after you played it, and they try to Flame of the Outer World, you're allowed to produce will. So that's another kind of way the chase works more in the battle sense, but I can kind of talk more about it when I do the video on Battle 2. And then Glinda kind of works exactly the same way as Featsing does. If they play a card and that card is in the chase, I'm able to banish Glinda and try to attempt to make them pay 2 more for it if it's a spell. The reason why Glinda is safe from being stopped after this point is because it leaves the field. So if, let's say, it was some kind of, well, I guess even if it was a tap effect and they thundered, it would still go through. But you know, if they Flame of the Outer World, Hershey of course can't banish it because you can't chase to the card. But cards that remove themselves from the game, the only thing that can stop them is a card like Glimpse of Kaguya. So you would, they would play, let's say, their Tale of Fairy Tale, and you attempt to make them cost 2 more for it, and then they Glimpse of Kaguya your Glinda, and its effect is countered, and they get to draw a card. So with Guinevere, the first effect is once again an activate. I mentioned this yesterday. Banish the Resonator, draw 2 cards, and discard a card. Activates go into the chase the same way Spellchant Instants do. You can use them anytime you could use a Spellchant Instant as long as you're properly meeting the trigger for it. And what makes a card like this so great is, once again, we're going to keep using Percival because he's awesome, but, well, she's awesome, but let's say you have Guinevere. You can, if they attempt to Thunder Percival, you can respond with Guinevere to sack it and draw 2 and discard 1. And why this is so great is because you're going to lose your card anyway, so to be able to gain a draw 2, discard 1 off of it is so good because you can properly set up your graveyard if you need to, maybe get rid of any cards you don't really want to see. If you stack something with Cheshire, you can get to it faster. There's just so many ways that this card is good. And it's so nice to know that when you have Guinevere, even if they Thunder just her, she can just do it on herself and plus off of it anyway, and they just kind of have to force you to remove it, which is fine because you're plussing off of it and they're not. So a card like that is really good as well. Like I said, the chase works exactly the same way. They would use Thunder. Thunder's in the chase. You would activate this and remove Percival, and Thunder would then, well, her effect would resolve first. You would draw 2 and discard 1, and then Thunder would resolve and have nothing, no target, so it would just miss. So that's kind of how the way activates work. Like I mentioned in yesterday's video too, I'll mention this because a lot of people do have questions. Because this does have a colon there after Resonator, if you do this on a card like Ruke will enter the chase first. Well, essentially second, because her effect would activate, it goes into the chase. Ruke hits the graveyard, goes into the chase. Ruke first activates to go, well, it doesn't activate, it's a continuous effect, so you can't Glimpse of Kaguya it, but you would use, Ruke would search first because it was the last thing to happen, and then after you shuffle your deck, Guinevere would draw 2 and discard 1. Another thing to note is Zero. This is the second last card I'm going to talk about. And Zero, the reason why this card is so important is because of how battle works. I'm not going to go into too much detail for it because, like I said, I do have that battle video still to talk about. But let's say if I attempt to attack with Guinevere and they have a Percival and they attempt to block. If you were to draw, quick cast drop Zero and do the -2/-2 to their field, even if they Thunder Zero at this point and she dies, you're still allowed, the effect still of course goes through, so this would die and the 200 would go through. Always remember that with the chase, enter effects will always go through unless you're Zeexed. So if you play a card in the chase, at this point, if you attempt to use Zero, their only response could possibly be to Thunder your Guinevere to stop the attack from going through, but in any other circumstance, Zero would hit the field, all their -2s would, well, all their 200 defenses would die, and then your attack would go through if you were battling. Now, if, let's say, they have a Percival and a Glinda, and you attempt to, well, I guess Glinda's not a good example. Let's say they have 2 Percivals, 1 recovered, 1 rested, and you attempt to attack Percival, and this one blocks, and then you drop Zero. and they both die, your attack does not then go through, it would just fizzle. So your attack only goes to the intended target. There's no going through anywhere else. And I'm gonna do symbol skills tomorrow, where I'll talk about more about that with Pierce, and then the battle video will clear it up too. And then lastly, Oz isn't complicated or anything, but I just wanted to make sure, because I did speak about the enters going in the chase and resolving backwards. If you play Oz and there's a bunch of other things in the chase, let's say Percival sacked to protected J-Ruler or Knight, and Guinevere had sacked herself to draw 2 and discard 1. Like how I mentioned with feasting, where its enter goes through and you can remove the counter, the only way this wouldn't possibly kind of work is, well, it's also because this is an instant, but if I play Oz and his enter goes off to search for Thunder and they start responding with all this stuff, you can't grab the Thunder and then add that same Thunder in the chase because it hasn't fully resolved yet. And I just wanted to make that clear. I'm pretty sure that's kind of obvious, but just to make sure, the only reason something like that works with feasting is because it's a quick cast, so it goes into the field as the last thing that happens. But think of Oz almost like a spell chant, where because you play it as a regular resonator and its entry goes through, if everything else starts happening, of course you can still respond with cards in your hand to any order you want to, as long as you just add it into the chase. But you wouldn't get the card first and then play it. The enter is still, so you play Oz, it's in the chase, they have no response. It enters, your enter goes in the chase, they have a response. You now don't grab that Thunder first before doing anything, and I just wanted to make that clear. So yeah, that's kind of everything. This was kind of just my video on the chase. I know I kind of talked about it in the last 2 videos, so I was just making sure to clear anything up. If you guys do have any questions or suggestions, I'd love to hear them, because like I keep mentioning, this is my first time doing this. I don't really do how to plays or tutorials or anything really, so I'd like to know what you guys like about it or what you don't, what I could do to improve it. And if you guys haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do, because I have the symbol skill video coming tomorrow, and then as well as the battle video coming on Friday to wrap things up. And I have a bunch of story stuff planned for next week. I know I'm going to finish MOA for sure. I might even do a little bit more of NPR with the 6 Ages. So I'll keep you guys updated, and I will catch you guys next time.